All right, guys. This week, we're not doing a review of the week. However, just give a verbal review of the week. I connected with a guy named Matt Wells quite some time ago. And I mean, this guy just seems like a cool guy out there on the internets. I'll connect with them and say hi and shout him a message. And he goes, dude, I listen to these podcasts. And of the three that I love, here's one of them called the Journey of a Christian Dad podcast. I'm like, no way. Like, that's me. So that was phenomenal to hear that I was on your list of top three dad podcasts or top three podcasts that you listen to. So I appreciate your words so much. That was so encouraging months and months and months ago because I admire what you do. So men, welcome Matt Wells with Basic Dad Stuff. If you haven't seen his videos, you got to check them out on, especially on LinkedIn, but he also does them on Facebook and other places as well. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. That is quite the introduction, brother. It's good to be here. Good to talk to you. It really and truly is an honor because, yeah, I mean, really and truly, I forget that big origin story of the conversation we first had that I was already listening to you before realizing you were who you were. So good stuff, man.
That is so cool. And just seeing what you were doing out there, I'm like, man, this guy is a real guy. He's pretty fun. Like if there's certain topics in life that I realize I need more of, and I'm like, man, I need more friendly guys that are fun, that are authentic, that love their kids. And I was like, I gotta, be a goofball and grab this random guy that I've never heard of, and you know, connect on the interwebs and whatnot. So thankful that I have you in my life, Matt.
Right back at you, man. It really has been awesome getting to know you over these last few months and communicating and having the back and forth dialogue. And between you as well as the all the gentlemen that are in the devotional group that we interact with, it's been really truly inspiring to see a group of guys that have that kind of camaraderie and transparency and openness to be vulnerable and to be honest about what's going on in their lives and give that to other men and reach out to other men who can say prayers for them and be there for them and encourage them through whatever they're going through. You opened up with the prayer, which I caught. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but basically you're quoting Ephesians 4:29 in your prayer about building others up according to their need that'll benefit those who listen, and which is one of my mantras. Building 429 was a band I used to listen to way back in the early 2000s, and that's a great scripture reference. So that it may benefit those who listen, man. Whoever's out there listening, it's good stuff, and it can be benefit to you.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you picked up on that. But yeah, whatever speech I do, wherever I'm at, I always say that prayer before. And with that, it takes all the anxiety and fear and of public speaking and just takes it off me because it's not on me at that point. It's up to God what comes out of my lips after that.
You got it.
So, yep, take a deep breath and let her rip after that. So,
whatever comes will come.
So tell me, like, who are you? Where'd you come from? How'd you get to here? Give us the snapshot of that.
Oh man. So, I'm really just kind of I'm every man, every guy, I'm not that much different. I think that's one thing that has done well for the Basic Dad Stuff videos that you mentioned a reference beforehand is that I'm just another dad out here trying to do my best. And the key part of that and the key component of that is just being present and active and having fun with my kids and my wife and being present every single day. So yeah. So as far as who I am, all that good stuff, I'm not going to tell you my life story. I'll try to wrap it up in a very short nutshell version. I grew up in a Christian home with two incredible parents, a great father figure, a mother who has been just the picture of unconditional love my entire life. So I grew up with that incredible foundation and picture of what, number one, a marriage should look like. Number two, what Christian masculinity should look like in a father, and how, a father should treat a mother and things of that nature. So I had that great picture and great example to be a role model for me growing up. I am a Florida State Seminole. So, after I grew up in Pensacola, Florida, on the west side of Pensacola or west side of Florida, and went to Florida State University after that. So I bleed garnet and gold, even though it's painful blood these last several years. I don't have a whole lot to, be proud of lately. It's a painful saga, but eventually we're going to come back around. We're always rebuilding. So eventually we're going to be on top one day. But yeah, so I went to Florida State and met my wife there about my third year or fourth year into college. And, I, like most people, like a lot of men and women, when I was in college, I did derail a bit from my walk and living just the life that I should be living. But the beautiful part about that was, and I recognize today, is the foundation that I have that was laid down for me ahead of time. I returned to that. That's one of those things where the Bible talks about that, if you lay down the foundation, that eventually your children will return. And I did. And I recognized, it was time for me to come back to God and turn my eyes back to him. And my parents were always there for me through the storm that I was living through for a while, and praying for me, gave me tough love when I needed to hear tough love. And met my wife girlfriend at the time, who also helped kind of detour me and turn me back in the right direction. And then when we got involved and got serious and got married, and I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I was got my bachelor's in sports management at Florida State University. And then I hung around for a while longer to get my master's because I didn't know what I wanted to do. So got my master's just so I could basically camp out a little while longer in Tallahassee and, postpone being a grown up and being an adult. But once I finished that, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I've always been a competitive guy. I grew up as an athlete my whole life, playing basketball and baseball and running track and field, weightlifting, a little stint in football, but mostly primarily I focused on basketball. But I was always an athlete. And when I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life career-wise, I thought, okay, well, in sales, I can continue to be competitive. That's probably the one area where I can really, truly still live out my competitive nature. So I decided to go into sales, and I've been in sales for the last decade of my life. Somewhere along the way, I got serious about, being a father. We had our first child in 2011, my daughter, Gracie. And I mean, I think every person's ever said that when you have kids, it's life-changing, and it's a perspective shift in your life. And that was that case for me. It definitely became like, wow, this is who I'm living for. And yeah, man, it became all about her and doing things right and raising her and being a great model of a man for her, whether that means, what she should look for in a man later on in life, or what she should look for, a mother to be treated that way by a father, or whatever it might be. And then eventually we had our second child, who's Gabriel. We had Graciela. We got Gabriel, and he's our little, what do you call it? Nap head, not nap head, but what's the bright blonde hair expression, a towhead or whatever it is. Long blonde hair, bright blue eyes, beautiful little boy. And we thought we were done, but God had other plans. And fast forward a couple of years, and we wound up having twin boys. So I've got I call them my minions. They are my little mighty warriors. I've, in the last, since the twins were born, I kind of refashioned the way I look at my kids, in a sense of, they were preemies. They were born 9 weeks premature, and they spent 6 weeks in the ICU, or the NICU at the hospital.
Ooh.
And it became all about, these little guys that had to overcome one obstacle after another. Now, they weren't that very, very terrible story that a lot of people experienced in the NICU, where they were struggling to survive. Our kids were doing well from day one, and they kept making progress. We never had a scary moment or a fear of losing them. But they still had to overcome. They were only 2 pounds, 8 ounces when they were born. So they were teeny tiny little guys. And I call them my giant slayers, because they had to slay one giant after another, after another, after another to get out of there. And I've always been fascinated by the story of David and his mighty men, and the saga of the mighty men. And so I kind of changed the way I look at my children and started seeing them as my giant slayers. All 4 of them are my giant slayers. I have a song that I made up called Mighty Men. We are mighty men. It's about the Wells men and one woman. And we walk around singing that sometimes and chanting. It's our little mantra. We have a battle cry in our house. It's Rock Kazak, which is Joshua 1:8, be strong and courageous. And yeah, so almost like I'm the general of my army, and my army of little boys and one girl who are meant to be soldiers for the Lord. And that's the way I'm looking at it anyways.
Yeah. Wow.
That's my nutshell version.
You said quite a bit there. Going back to your parents, did you ever see, I almost said, did they ever have a rough patch in their marriage, which we can kind of assume that they haven't had flowers and roses for the entirety of their marriage. Did you ever see a rough patch or a stint where it shook you a little bit?
I can honestly say that as a family, we went through some rough patches and, financially. So we were never a wealthy family growing up. We were always not poor. We weren't, wanting or feeling like we're gonna be on the streets anytime soon, but we grew up not having a lot. So, my dad worked very hard. I mean, he's been a picture of hard work my whole life. He's very much instilled the value of hard work in me. And that's because I grew up watching him work hard, but we did struggle financially. But as far as the two of them, mother and father, I mean, really and truly, not even bending the truth in the slightest bit, I can tell you that I don't ever remember a time in my life where I looked at them as a ship in a storm, in rough waters. They seem to always be together and strong. And a lot of that has to do with my mom. I mean, my dad is a strong man, an awesome picture of a Christian man, but my mom has always been the glue that holds them together. She's that picture of, in my mind, perfection, as she can be. A lot of guys feel that way about their mom. I mean, that's a mama boy mentality, I guess. But, she was always there, always supporting him, always encouraging him, despite whatever we might've been going through. So, I mean, it seems like a candy answer, but no, I don't remember any times where they had a rough patch marriage wise. Now, that's not to say that they might not have had those patches, and they did a good job of keeping them behind closed doors, and us children were unaware, which I should have said. I'm also the oldest of four. So I have four kids. And I'm the oldest of four kids. So I have three siblings also. I have two sisters and one brother. So it's two boys, two girls. So everything that I'm experiencing right now is like, well, my parents have been through it and seen it and experienced it themselves, just a different generation with different problems, but they've had the 4-kid life of growing up with that kind of battle. But they were always solid in my eyes, and whatever troubles they may or may not have had happened out of my sight.
Got it. Got it. So how you mentioned college and then your wife kind of brought you back. What did that look like? How did that happen?
So I met my wife. I was working at TCBY, which I don't think they even exist anymore. I think they have faded into the mist in the background. But at the time was a really big country's best yogurt or an ice cream shop in Tallahassee, and she wound up being a customer that came to me, and I hooked her up with some free yogurt with the extra peanut butter on the bottom kind of thing, and wound up getting her phone number, and we started talking and hanging out and having fun together. And at that time, I was living, I would guess you just call it the cliche college lifestyle. I was a guy who partied a lot on the weekends, had a lot of fun, never struggled or affected my studies. I still did well as far as school is concerned, but I had a lot of fun. And there came a point where she basically told me, Matt, you either need to move on with your life and grow up and be a man, or I'm not going to be a part of your life anymore. And I wouldn't call it an ultimatum. It was not by any stretch of the imagination an ultimatum. I was at that age where I needed to figure out, okay, what do I want to do with my life? Do I want to go in this direction of just still not really knowing what I want to do? Or do I really want to get grounded and focus on my future? And focusing on my future was with her. I mean, I fell in love with her, and it became a very real attraction, magnetic, where, we were very good together. And we had, obviously, like any couple, we have our struggles and things that we butt heads on. But she helped steer me back in the right direction. And I got back into church with her and stopped partying and doing all the dumb things I was doing because, she.
What did some of those decisions or discussions sound like before you or as you got back to church?
Well, so she and I had a very different upbringing. I grew up in a Southern Baptist church in Florida in the South. She actually grew up in a very Roman Catholic home. So while we had very, very different backgrounds in terms of what church is like and how you like what the Christian lifestyle may look like, she still was very much she was not a party girl at Florida State, which is almost kind of a rare thing at Florida State, to meet a girl who's not into going out and partying on the weekends and stuff. She and I would hang out and party together and things of that nature, but she wasn't into it as much as I was. She was more of the, she wanted to be in bed by a certain time on the weekends and any other given night for that matter. Well, I want to be like out doing stuff. But the conversations, oh man, having to dig into my brain here. The conversations really and truly, I think, were just more centered around whether I wanted to be serious about a relationship or whether I wanted to be serious about, being an immature college guy.
Okay.
And as non-threatening a way as those can happen, I mean, she always had the best in mind for me and one of the best for me as a man to grow up and to figure out what I want to do. And she helped steer me into sales for that matter also, because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And she's the person that actually first recommended, hey, what about medical sales? I mean, what do you think about going into that? Because you're a competitive guy. I've seen the competitive nature. And my studies had been all about sports and sport management and being, in some kind of a sport role. But about halfway through my master's curriculum, I suddenly had that epiphany that I don't even think I want to be involved in sports anymore. Quite frankly, I've been a competitor my whole life and now 5 years of studies on it. And I think I'm kind of done with it. So when you're halfway through a master's program and suddenly realize you don't want to be in that program anymore, it's like, oh boy, now what? So she's the one that recommended medical sales, and you can have a very rewarding career in that area. And people that are in sales generally can have a very flexible and giving lifestyle. And since I grew up in a family that was a very strong, close family, I knew I wanted that for my lifestyle, for my life as well. So I think sales is one of those areas that can afford you to have a great work-life balance. And she spoke a lot of that to me. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it sure does. Yeah, it sure does. Just sort of her influence, encouragement. It's funny when you value a wife, value and understand and cherish her. And then also when she speaks into your life, you're like, you really like guys can really listen to their wives when wives plant a seed. Like there's so many examples of all kinds of women that have, you go to the queen when you want a favor from the king. Hey, can you go ask him for me?
Yeah.
And if she's into it, she'll go say, hey, son, here's the deal.
Yep.
So, yep, absolutely. So, Florida State, competitive, going to sales. Were you always able to have a good idea of how to balance family life and work life, or did you go overboard?
No, it was all, I think this comes back to, me trying to make my life mirror in as much a way as I could the life that I grew up in, because like I said, we had a very close family. I mean, I'm so blessed and thankful that I can say that all three of my siblings today are amazing, awesome Christian people, who are raising their children and their families and living in strong Christian homes. I mean, my brother's that way. Both of my sisters are amazing Christian women. So there's not a lot of people I think that can say that their whole family grew up that way and still maintain that. So to me, that just speaks volumes about my parents' influence and, what it meant to us growing up. So when I started having kids, I wanted to mirror that as much as I could. When we only had Gracie, I was in medical sales and I traveled around a lot. So I was on the road a lot back then. When we had a second child, it's like, okay, I don't think I want to do this anymore. I don't want to be traveling the way I'm traveling. So it became finding a job locally here in Jacksonville where I wasn't going to be on the road, so I could be around more for them, and not spend much time on the road and be gone overnight, things of that nature. So then we had the twins. And I mean, I think that pretty much all of the hours that we are not working for the most part until they're in bed are dedicated to being with family. The weekends are family time. And it's by no means at all a picture perfect scenario whatsoever. I mean, one thing I try to focus on, if anybody knows me from LinkedIn at all, my content is focused on two things. Number one, I do content that's based on my job and my career, which is in sales. But I would say the majority of my content revolves around being a dad and being a family man, and the fact that I am very much a work in progress. So all of the content that I spit out on LinkedIn that's about being a dad and being present and being intentional and doing fun things and trying harder, all that stuff that's out there that some people might find some encouragement and inspiration from. The truth of the matter is I write all that content for myself. I'm speaking to myself as much as anyone else. When I write it and I hit the post button, I go back and I read it. So it speaks to me because I'm a work in progress as much as anybody else is. I never want to give out the persona or the idea that I'm this perfect father or that I'm this amazing dad. And, I think that our society is so fixated on the Kodak picture moment, the picture, the social media example. People see you on Facebook, they see you on Instagram, they see you on YouTube, whatever. And they see the bright, happy, amazing moments. They see what we want them to see. You don't, how many people ever post things of the fights or the arguments or the kids back talking? You don't see those moments. So while I might not actually share those moments in videos, I do talk about them a lot in the things that I write about, and that, listen, this is an imperfect world. We're all imperfect people. You can have your own opinion on whether we're inherently good or inherently bad, but at the end of the day, we all have a lot of work to do and a lot of soul searching to realize and try to live as much as we can to be a picture of Christ. And so always a work in progress.
You were telling me that somebody recently reached out to you and asked if you were a caricature.
Yes. So that goes to my basic dad stuff videos. So I'm coming up on week 92 in a row, or 93 weeks in a row of doing a basic dad stuff video every Wednesday. It's a Wednesday thing I do on LinkedIn. I started bleeding it into my Facebook page, also on the Dad Edge, as well as my own page. And I put it on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel that I'm putting them on as well. But the quote unquote character that people think that I play, or this person thought I play, is just, it's me. It's me in everyday life doing things with my kids. Basic dad stuff, to give you a quick run on that, is just, it's a minute to a 2-minute long video of me doing everyday things that we as dads do with our kids, or moms do with their kids also, and having a quick 15-second capture of that, and then looking at the camera and saying basic dad stuff. And I got this eyebrow thing. My eyebrow goes up, and I don't do it on purpose. That's just, my eyebrow goes up all the time. It always has my whole life. My wife has picked on me for my eyebrow thing. And people reached out and said, man, your eyebrow needs a LinkedIn page of its own. It's its very own character. But I had a person reach out to me at one point and say something along the lines of, hey man, I love your basic dad stuff videos, but is this really what you're like? Or is this a caricature of, something you're trying to portray or be, or, act out? And I heard that and I was like, wow, I guess somebody could see it that way. But none of these videos, none of these clips or snippets are me acting anything out. That's the beauty of why it's so relatable to people, is that this is just everyday stuff that we're doing. These are things that every dad, for the most part, has experienced. If they haven't experienced all of these things I'm doing, they've certainly experienced a lot of them. And no, this is not a portrayal of anything. It's not me acting. This is the way I talk. It's the inflection of my voice. It's how I talk with my kids. My eyebrow is probably up half the time. I would say that when it's up in non-special entertaining moments, it's probably more of the going up and the kids are going, uh-oh, what'd I do? It's
yes.
Like you're in their first, middle, last name, eyebrow goes up, Graciela Faith Wells, and the eyebrow is up. It's never a good thing, but in the videos, the eyebrow is always up.
It is. And I love seeing your kids, I don't want to say make fun of it, but get into the spirit also, where they play their role, and they just love those videos.
What's cute about it is the two twins are too small to really get it yet, but Gracie and Gabriel, after doing it for several weeks, started, doing the same thing. They'd walk around the house and say basic sister stuff. or my little boy would see me do something. Gabriel would see me do it and go basic dad stuff. I'm like, yep, that's right.
Yeah.
So, and if I talk about basic dad stuff at all, I do always want to give credit to a guy named Patrick McNamara, or Pat Mac, or, he's a lot of names. He's a big, giant Instagram follower. I think he was Special Forces in the Army, has a massive following on Instagram, where he does combat strength training, a lot of other things also, where he's got a few different businesses that he's a part of. But he does a video series called Basic Dude Stuff. And I literally came in on like week 2, where I saw that it popped up in my feed on LinkedIn, and I watched it and I was like, oh, this is so me. This guy's awesome. This is great stuff. And I saw it, and I reached out to him directly and said, hey man, I saw your basic dude stuff. I got an idea. Would you be okay with me doing kind of a spoof on it, instead of basic dude stuff as basic dad stuff? And he gave me he literally responded with a thumbs up emoji. I was like, all right, cool. So I gave it a whirl. People right away started responding to it and being like, this is really, number one, entertaining. Number two, it's great to see a dad having fun with his kids and, just being goofy and being a bozo out there with his children. So it became something that went from 1 week to 2 weeks to 3 weeks to here we are coming up on, mid 90s, coming up on 100 in a month and a half or 2 months from now. So it's become a thing, it's something that I love doing, and my family all knows I do it. I'm working on getting basic dad stuff, trademark for it and copyright it, and who knows what else. So
that's awesome. So with your kids, when you snap on them, do you ever snap on them?
Man, I snap way more.
With the eyebrow, I don't know if you need to.
The eyebrow should say it all, right? No, I definitely snap on them. And, if I said I didn't, I'd be a big fat liar. It's something that I am always working on, all the time, trying to work on that because I do have a temper. And when you have 4 kids, somebody's always doing something out of line. And I feel like the more kids you have, the less, your patience is just spread more and more and more thin across them. When we had 1 kid, when it was just Gracie, I felt like I had a lot more patience. And when we had 2 kids, it was still a little bit better, but the patience was a little bit less. Then we had the dog who was a big goofball who ate things he shouldn't be eating and had,
Yes.
that kind of thing. And the twins came on board. The twins are my 2 little twin tyrants. Their mission in life, it feels like at this stage in life, is to divide and conquer. They go one way, and then this one goes that way. One's hanging from the light fixtures, the other one is digging into the Tupperware cabinet. Then when we go one way or the other, they dart off in different directions. So they're just constantly trying to divide us up and conquer the village here. So the more kids you have, the more my patience has been spread thin, and it's something that I work on all the time. I'm constantly trying to better myself and control myself. And I read a lot of books on parenting. It's one thing I had somebody tell me a few days ago, Matt, you should stop reading all these books, stop reading so much stuff and just focus on being you. And like, that's great. That's good. But I'm taking a lot of tidbits, a lot of little snippets out of all these different books that I can apply to my own particular situation. But one book that I just read, talked about having a little post-it note that has a CV on it, not like a cover letter, but CV for calm voice. Because I mean, I have a loud, boisterous voice as it is. I mean, I'm not a soft-spoken person at all. So
good buddy of mine, John's a construction guy. He does elevators, and then he comes home. Well, he's been out in a loud environment the entire day. So when he comes home, he's already got a voice like yours that's been amplified all day because he's had to be basically yelling at people to have a regular conversation in the environment he's in. If he comes home, he's like, that's something every day I remind myself to check my voice. One, I'm not hearing so good by the end of the day from all the noise that's come in. So my voice is louder. He goes, so I got to remind myself so I don't holler at my kids when I'm just having a regular conversation.
Yeah.
So that's a great one to point out.
For sure, man. I mean, the calm voice CV is something that is a big one for me because even if I start the day off, I have to start my day in prayer, and I have to make sure that in my prayers, 2 things I do in prayer every day is that I talk about, or I put on the full armor of God when I say my prayers in the morning. I do it with my daughter, and not every day. I like to do it every day, but the full armor of God with her, say that prayer. And secondly, I pray that I will be able to keep my patience and not raise my voice, because I do it. That's my Achilles heel of parenting, is I just get frustrated and my voice goes up, and I recognize and fully acknowledge that I shouldn't be doing it. Now, granted, there's moments where it's justified. No doubt about it. As a parent, there's moments where things get heated and you need to raise your voice to get their attention or something. But that's something I'm always working on, man.
So I agree that makes a big deal at the very beginning of the day. If you start out right and you got your foundation right, the rest of the day does seem to go better. Where if the day starts out frazzled and you're missing some key elements. So I pray for my kids and my wife and myself every morning, and I add things to it, but I've got some specific prayers that I do. I like that you add the full armor of God, put that on. What's something in that prayer that you just love?
So, the prayer goes for me, help me put on the full armor of God, Lord, the helmet of salvation. And I add on to it. So the full armor of God, put arm me with the helmet of salvation to guard my mind, so I'm thinking pure thoughts, the breastplate of righteousness and my heart is pure, the belt of truth, so I'm speaking in honesty, the sandals of peace, or I even say the boots of joy, so I'm walking around with a contagious joy all day long, that it will benefit those who see it and they want to mimic that, and they see the joy and they want to experience the joy. And of course, the sword of the Spirit, the word, and the shield of faith, to protect me from the attacks, because Lord knows that as a Christian man walking around in a very unchristian world, the attacks are coming from all directions. So that shield's got to be held high.
Yeah, that was awesome. I love the way you just rolled right through that. The helmet protects me from things from the outside, and then we're responsible for what's on the inside. So the transforming of the mind, we're responsible for. So when I started studying about that, I'm like, oh, I absolutely love that part. And one of them that I just sort of skipped, who cares about sandals? I don't wear sandals.
Yeah. That's why I say boots of joy, the sandals of peace. And really and truly, when you read the scripture, it doesn't really, I feel like the sandals they can be a little bit twisted in how it's presented versus how people talk about it. But I call it the boots of joy, maybe just because it sounds manlier. I don't know, but
Yeah,
like the
absolutely.
boots of joy.
Yeah, I
So,
like the way you twisted that. That's cool. But yeah, later on, I'm like, I started to appreciate the sandals and how it was talked about. But I like boots of joy. That works for me. So I know you're a big foundations guy. Have you got anything to add? Foundations.
well, yeah, I mean, in a conversation, you hear me go back to foundations a lot, whether it's my foundation and the upbringing I had as parents. You just mentioned the foundation that every day starts with. Start the morning off with a foundation of devotion time, prayer, whatever it is. I mean, um, Matthew 7:25 is the scripture I go back to all the time, and it's become one of my actually my personal email address is based off of Matthew 7:25, which is that the rains came down, the floods came, the wind pounded on the house, but it wouldn't fall. It was founded on the rock. What's the old song? Oh shoot, on Christ the solid rock I stand, all other on the sinking sand. So that has been kind of the foundational verse, which, pun intended, of my life that I go back to. I mean, everything I am and every bit of who I am centers back on the foundation that I was raised with. And that's what I'm trying to do for my children, is raise them with a solid foundation that they can also stay rooted in no matter what comes up in their life. And ideally, hopefully, I pray that they never go down some of the roads that I went down in terms of just detouring and getting out of their Christian walk. But if they do, I pray that foundation is solid and secure so they come back to it when it's all said and done.
That's where I get my peace from. So if that happens, I take peace in the fact that the foundation was there.
Yep, the foundation's there, and all I can do as a dad is be somebody that's pointing them in the right direction. As it talks about, our children are quivers, arrows in our quiver, and if we aim them in the right direction and steer them in the right direction, ideally those arrows will fly true to the target. So,
what are some core values or just anything that comes into the Matt Wells family? Like,
yeah, man.
how do you want your family to be?
I think of that as pillars. I think that as a dad, as a father, we've got pillars we have to live and build our house and upon. There's a foundation at the bottom, and there's pillars on top of that foundation, and we build our house and build our lives on top of those pillars. So, I mean, I think the first most important one for us is having unity with our spouses. That may not always be perfect. It may not always look the way we want it to, but having that unity. Oh, got one of my giant slayers coming in here now.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Today I got Pirate Day.
Pirate Day. Look
Heck yeah, you did.
Look at you, man. You look awesome.
My wife loves Pirate Day.
Got the eye patch and everything. That's super cool, buddy.
Thank you.
Wait, Daddy's talking to Mr. Daniel for a few minutes. Can you give me a few minutes?
Yeah.
Hey,
all right, we'll see you. Great to see you.
Huh?
Aren't you at work?
Because I'm on a call here.
Are you gonna have to go back?
Yeah. All right. I gotta finish this
Bye,
call. I love
Gracie.
you guys. Close the door, Gabriel. Close the door, please.
Okay.
Thank you. There
It's
you go.
awesome. It's a dad show. Welcome, welcome.
Yes, it's Dad's show. Dad, the kids pop in. Oh, what?
When you're like, I need you to FaceTime me like at the dollar store or someplace because I have a project. It's like due on like Wednesday or Tuesday tomorrow.
So yeah, the unity with the wife is imperative. Your children need to see you as a united front. A house divided against itself will not stand. You can use that in politics in the country, Republicans versus Democrats. You can use that in the household as moms versus wives. If kids see their children as two divided beings that think differently, act differently, treat differently, they're going to use that. Kids are smart. So a united front as mom and dad is probably the number one most important thing that I think that we have as parents as a value. Other thing is just the spirit of persistence. You're never going to quit. You're never going to waver. I mean, we all know how hard it can be. We all know how easy it is to toss the towel in and just give up. And I don't mean walking out as a dad and being, and leaving. I mean, even just shutting down for the day and be like, you know what? I'm done. I'm going to go lay down. I'm not here. You take it from now, sweetheart, and that kind of thing. That's going to cause two things to happen. Number one, your wife is going to not respect you as much because you're not there for her.
Right.
You're going to do everything. And number two, your kids are going to see you as a dad that just doesn't have the intentionality of wanting to be there as a father should. That's going to be something they see and recognize and know. And for the rest of their life, yeah, dad's always tired. Dad's never around. Dad gets home from work and he's pooped out and he goes to his room, or he sits down on the couch and pops on ESPN or whatever, So
What's a way to change that? So say you're that dad right now. What advice would you give to that dad?
I don't have anything profound other than I love that I read a book a while back that talks about switching from saying no to just saying yes.
Yep.
Just say yes to things. As parents, as people, we're so instinctively rooted in saying no to our kids. Well, most of us are. Some people could probably use a little bit more no in their lives as far as saying no to their kids, but it's so easy to say no that sometimes we got to say, you know what? I'm going to pledge right now. And maybe that's the thing, is maybe if you're a person who struggles with this, maybe you take a week or a challenge or a 30-day challenge, like somebody I know, where you commit yourself for the next 30 days. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes to my kids. When they ask me to get out and jump on the trampoline, I'm going to say yes. When they ask me to go ride a bicycle, I'm going to say yes. They want to jump in the pool, I'm going to say yes. And just say yes for a week or for 30 days and see how it can change your life and how it can change and skew the way you look at things, really and truly. I mean, they say that 21 days to make a habit, but when you start seeing the difference it makes in your kids' lives to have you around, present, playing with them and doing things with them, it's hard to go back to being a dad that can say no and just, throw the towel in and be done for the day.
So 75 hard is a big challenge that's out there. And that
Mhm.
one's a mammoth one, by the way. So if you guys look it up and think, oh, I'll just go do that, it's a big one. But you actually got me through 75 hard. I had tried it time and time again, and various things came up. One of them was COVID. That one sort of derailed me, where, wheels fell off when I was pretty confident I was going to be able to finish that one. And then you're like, hey, I'm going to try this 75 hard thing. I'm like, dude, if you're doing it, I'm doing it, because I can roll with you. And we kept each other accountable every day. I was fairly quiet throughout, generally speaking. You did a good job of keeping the cheerleader aspect going, but because I wanted to finish out and I didn't want to let you down, that was a big part of why I finished. And the biggest thing that happened during that was the second workout. For me, the second workout was a game changer, because I changed the way I attempted to do it. So you're supposed to do 2 workouts a day. So in the morning, I always work out. So that one was easy. And you're supposed to get an outdoor workout in. And I generally always work out outdoor in the morning. So that one was super easy. The second one, I'm like, I'm going to incorporate my kids and my wife, if she wants to, every time. So 5 days a week or so, the second workout was with my kids doing something, whether it was tennis, whether it was a walk, a hike, a ruck. One day I told you I went fishing with 2 kids. We were on a hillside. And so that was one of my hardest second workouts. It doesn't sound that way, but you get 2 kids that can't tie their own hooks and get snagged on stuff and are yelling, Dad, 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 get over here. But, and so we bonded, and now we've created kind of a thing where we're always doing something active at night when I get off work. And it's just carried on, and it's been awesome. So one, thank you for getting me through 75 hard, but even bigger than that, connecting with my kids in a way consistently every day that I had not been. Like, I thought I was doing great, but now they are fired up at nighttime to go on an adventure every night.
Yeah. That's gold, man. Go on an adventure, whatever that might be. An adventure does not have to mean you're going into the mountains and hiking, man. You can have an adventure in your backyard, an adventure in your neighborhood, an adventure down the street. I mean, there's so many simple things that we can do. And again, we just have to say yes. We got to swap pleasure for purpose. So, be purposeful and intentional on what we're doing, and stop thinking about the quick, simple, instant gratification pleasures of sitting down on your phone and swiping through Instagram, or sitting down and watching ESPN. Those are instant pleasures that we're all rooted and just quickly sucked into. But swap that for purpose, man. Being a purpose-driven father in what you're doing.
Vision. So swiping on your phone and ask yourself, hey, is this where I want to be? Is this adding to, well, I want to be connected to my kids. I want to, okay. How is that helping?
Yeah. And that's, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I say, I'm a work in progress. I say these things for myself because I'm as guilty as anybody is of sitting down and swiping on my phone or picking my phone up when I need to be playing with them. And if they call me on that and I recognize it, all right, my butt's up out of that chair and we're doing something, so we got to make it happen. Just get off your butt and do something, for crying out loud.
Traditionally, we've been at bedtime doing 5, 10, 15 minutes of like YouTube videos or whatever, kids, whatever they do on tablets. And we kind of lay there with them, my
Mhm.
wife with one, me with the other. I don't have four, so I don't have to add two more into this mix. And my wife and I finally, my wife goes, "Hey, we're done with tablets at nighttime. From now on, it's books, it's talking." And my one daughter does something called Looms where she makes bracelets and stuff. We're like, okay, that'll work
Mhm.
because being engaged in something physical, you can, talk and be open about stuff.
For sure.
And it was something that was bugging me for a long time. And finally my wife laid the hammer down, like no electronics. And it's been so awesome.
Well, good. I'm glad she did, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So fitness, you're like totally into fitness as well.
I'm all about fitness, man. That's I'm a fitness minded person. So I like to say that I've got the trifecta, and they're all F's, faith, fitness, and family, or my main three I go to. And if I were to add a fourth on the end of that, I'd say firearms also. But I'm not going to go down the firearm road with you today. But yeah, my faith comes first, family comes second. I think I might have had that in the wrong order: faith, family, and fitness. But I'm all about fitness, man. So you mentioned 75 hard. That's just the latest journey that I'm on, in terms of my lifetime journey of being fitness minded. But I've always been really into fitness, and probably at some points, truthfully, maybe a little bit unhealthy, a little bit of body dysmorphia, because I've just been in good shape pretty much my whole life. And I feel like if I were to not be in shape, I almost lose a part of my identity that I've always had. But really and truly, I have shifted my focus and stop focusing so much on being super strong or being super lean, chiseled, cut, whatever. And it should be more about just being in good shape and being active so I can do these things with my kids. And so I'm not stuck with debilitating injuries and things of that nature because I'm in terrible shape.
So you just brought something up. I was out with some guys the other day, and one of the guys was overweight, just call it what it was. But he was doing the stuff to not be overweight. He was working out and everything. And each one of us were talking about why we stay in shape. And this guy says, I doing it so I lose 10, 20 pounds or something so that I can run faster, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And it came around to me and I go, man, I started doing this a long time ago because I know that I want to be on the ground playing with my grandkids. And everybody kind of paused. I go, I don't have grandkids. Like at the time I decided to get in shape, I didn't even have kids.
Yeah.
And I was looking long term, and I didn't want to be that 70-year-old or even 80-year-old that didn't have the ability to engage with the kids in that kind of way. And some, grandkids are still quite a ways away, but I'm going to be in shape. And that the guy that was 10 or 20 pounds, he goes, scratch that. I'm not aiming to lose 10 or 20 pounds so that I can do a little bit faster in the run or whatever. That's mine now. I want to be able to play with my grandkids.
That's a great answer, man. I mean, that's a phenomenal answer because we all think about our kids, but what about our grandkids that we might not have yet?
Yeah. So these foundations that you're passing down, same thing. It goes to your grandkids who then pass them along and keep going. So wherever your family is, you can change the course of your whole family by changing the way you think, the way you talk, the way you act, and then your kids will pass that on as well.
Yeah. And the fitness is a big part of that, obviously. And the fitness really should bleed into so many other areas of your life. So if you take care of yourself, you take care of your own physical health, it's going to carry over into your relationships. You're going to be happier. You're going to have more confidence. You're going to have more energy throughout the day. I mean, to not focus on your own personal physical fitness, you're really doing yourself a disservice in just everyday living, period. End of statement.
And this will release later. However, you're about to run the 30-day challenge for me while I'm away in Colorado and have no internet service or anything like that. So I want to thank you before you even do something of kind of curating and taking care of the guys in the Journey of a Christian Dad Facebook community and just keeping it fun and whatever it is you do while I'm away with literally no cell service, no internet service whatsoever for 5 days. Thank you. Like that was really, really cool. And I love the fact that you're the type of guy that I could ask.
Well, you're welcome. And of course you can always ask, man, always reach out if you need help with anything
and what I mean by that is if you were a different, sort, if you had different core values, if you had different, if there's something a little not trustworthy about you, it's like, oh, you're really cool and all, but I can't trust you. Right. So, so that was great. couple things I do want to point out for people that have listened is, who do you know that's like Matt? Who do you know that's like Matt that is physically fit? Maybe it's you. Who do you know that has a marriage? Who do you know that has a marriage that's just, pretty great, that you can see and you'd like to emulate that? Who do you know who has had parents that had that kind of a marriage? So I encourage you to seek out in different areas of your life what you'd like to be. So if you'd like to not be the person, scrolling on your phone on Instagram or whatever, if you'd like to not be the guy that flips on ESPN when you get home, who do you know that doesn't do that? Who do you know that does something that you'd like to do? Hang around them and that'll rub off on you. So some of these physical challenges that we've done in the 30-day challenge, I've done them with another guy. And the reason is because I want my score to be better. One of the reasons. Two, that camaraderie. It's always fun to do hard stuff with other people, but my score is way, way better when I'm doing it with somebody else.
Well, your score was pretty impressive. So,
so yes, and it wouldn't have been had I been doing it solo, but finding guys like you and kind of collecting relationships and investing in those relationships pay dividends and just help us stay the course or realize there's an even better course to be on. So frankly, I just thank you for being in my life, literally, because my family has had more fun because of you and just seeing what you do, but then also occasionally an encouraging message or something like that. I've got a number of people in my life that I repetitively thank for being who they are because it rubs off on me.
Well, dude, that's you got all the synapses in my brain firing with endorphins right now, because it always feels good to know that somebody has had any kind of a positive impact on their life from something that I said, did, or suggested. So you're welcome. Thank you for saying so, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And takeaway for people that just heard that part was praise people specifically. So instead of saying, "Hey, Matt, thanks, appreciate it, man."
Thanks for what? Yeah.
Yeah, that leaves Matt lacking. Like, cool, I did something. I'd like to get thanked again for something. And I'm actually kind of disappointed that I don't know what it is. And I'm going to think about it for a long time and try to figure it and then ultimately forget. But if you thank somebody specifically, it's something so few other people do and really just dials it up. I'm not bragging on myself. Somebody taught me this lesson a long time ago, but to see what it does, not only for Matt, take that into your marriage and say that to your wife in a way and watch what happens to her. Matt was talking about the endorphins and synapses firing. Same thing happens for your wife, and she just blooms like the most beautiful flower in the world.
Yep.
If you shower her with praise. So anyway, got off on a little bit of a tangent there, but I think that was a worthwhile one. I think
that's a good tangent for sure. And a great little not even a segue, but a little caveat to that is talking about thanking specifically. Same goes for your kids, man.
Yes.
Speaking specifically, thanking them specifically for something they did or
do you ever do this one
on their own.
Do you ever thank God? So the kid is present. Do you ever thank God for certain things about your kid where you're not talking to your kid, you're talking to God?
You know what? I don't think that I do, but you saying that out loud makes me think that I absolutely need to. And not in the pace. I think probably the way that most people do this, if you want to be honest, is the passive aggressive opposite of saying a prayer out loud about the kid. Dear Lord, please help my kid to act right and not lose the remote control every time they get this thing. That's the out loud prayer to God that you want the kid to hear and go, oh, okay, I should not lose remote control. But flip the switch on that. It's not a passive aggressive. Really, truly stop, say a prayer to God out loud, thanking God for whatever a kid accomplished. Thank you, God, that that Gracie got such a great test grade on her quiz today, or that she swept up the house without even being asked, and what an amazing kid she is. Wow, that could be powerful, man. A very powerful thing you can do.
It has been so powerful in my house. So the first time I did it, I don't know how old she was, maybe 4. So my strong-willed child that just gets on my nerves like nobody's business, and she's wonderful. However, she's passionate and she does what she wants no matter what. And she was having a fit, just a craze fit. And I stopped and I got calm and I wrapped her up in my arms. I don't want to hug, Daddy. I'm not hugging you, honey, as I'm hugging her. I said, I'm going to have a conversation. I don't want to talk to you. Good, because I'm not talking to you either. Dear God, I just want to thank you so much for my Emmy. She is the most adorable child. She works so hard. She loves so hard. She is so passionate. At times, she can boil over her emotions, and that's the way it is. And I appreciate just the way you made her, God. She's so unique and she brings so much fun into the household. And I just want to thank you so much, Lord. I can't imagine you being able to give me a child better than Emmy that loves me more than she does. Thank you, Lord. Amen. And
Wow.
her temper tantrum went from a 10 or 11 or a 12 on a scale of 10 to gone entirely. And she goes, "Did you just tell God that stuff about me?" I did. I did. I thanked him. Could you? I forget if it was immediate or if this was the next night, but she says, "Could you tell God some more of those things?"
Wow, man. That is speaking life into your kids by speaking to God about your kids, man. Wow. That's goosebump stuff right there, man.
I had forgot that. I don't think I've ever shared that one on the podcast.
That's awesome. That's a practice that instilled can just be game changing for how your children see themselves because of how they see you seeing them, if that makes
Yes.
sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, for sure. So we always
Wow.
like to finish off if you got any parting thoughts, and then also if you've got a challenge, maybe a week to week challenge for the guys.
Yeah, man. So I love the challenges that you get on these things, and I wish I put more thought into that. But I would say the intentionality of it here is just the main challenge, and that's what when my basic dad stuff videos and my content and encouragement all boils down to is just doing things with your kids. Get off your butt and do something with your kids. A lot of your challenges in the 30-day challenge are about that, whether it's cooking with your kids or doing a dance party with your kids. So my challenge to anybody out there listening would be, for the next week, 7 singing days in a row, do something with your kids. It doesn't matter what it is, just do something with them, whether it's 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, or longer. Get outside and play with them one day. Have a catch one day. The next day, go bounce on a trampoline. The next day, go on a walk together. The next day, go on a bicycle ride together. The next day, break out the old Nintendo NES and play some Super Mario Brothers together. Just do something with them 7 days straight in a row, and tell me that you don't see them appreciating and valuing that time and craving that time with their dad.
Now that is an awesome challenge. That is an awesome challenge.
And
I
it's
call
doable,
that-
man.
It is doable. I call that one carefree timelessness. You set aside everything and just intentionally spend one-on-one time or one-on-two time with your kids, whatever it is, 1-on-4.
Mhm.
Probably doesn't happen quite that way.
That's the hard part. That's the hard part
yeah,
with 4 kids.
yeah. But yeah, you can separate, you can, those type things. And if it's one of those days where you're stacked like crazy, do it in the morning, first thing,
Mhm. Whenever
before
you
the
can.
day even gets started. There's no rule that says you can't play checkers at 6 a.m.
There's no rule you can't get them out of bed at 5:30 a.m. and take them and teach them that the early
Bird gets the
early
worm.
bird gets the worm. Take them fishing. There you go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you certainly can do that. I know I've asked my kids, "Hey, you want to get up early tomorrow and do whatever? Can we do that, Dad? That'd be great."
Yeah.
So-
Surprise them, man. They won't be expecting it.
Well, I appreciate you as always. I only wish you lived in St. Louis, Missouri instead of Tallahassee. But next time I'm down that way, I'm going to have to pop in.
Yeah, man. By all means, you're ever around this. If you're ever,
When I
in
say
this-
Tallahassee, I mean Jacksonville.
Jacksonville.
Yeah,
Well, if you're
yeah,
ever in the
Jacksonville.
southeast of Florida and I realize it and find out you were here and you didn't let me know, there'll be trouble, brother.
Sounds great. Well, thank you so much for coming on this week. And thanks again for taking care of the 30-day challenge and just being a part of the community.
You bet, man. Happy to do it.